we're going to go ahead and open with a word of prayer, and then I will introduce our speaker for the hour here this afternoon. So let's go ahead and bow our heads. We say thank you for, again, giving us the opportunity to talk about things we think are of import to you. We ask that you would be with the discussion that commences today. Give us your wisdom, give us your guidance as we try to represent you in all we do. And we'll be careful to give you all the praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you all joining us this afternoon. I am here in Indiana at the Indiana camp meeting here in Cicero, Indiana, with Indiana Conference. We're here working on some disaster preparedness with some of our team here at one of the conference centers. And I know we had set up this educational seminar that we have had Marcus Coleman, who has agreed to join us. Marcus has worked with us for many years, and I can tell you, we just had interaction with Marcus at the Buffalo mass shooting that took place, and Marcus provided us with a number of resources that got us connected to the community right there in Buffalo during that mass shooting. And we also were able to communicate with him at the Uvalde, Texas shooting as well. Marcus is just a great resource that we try to take advantage of, and we're very appreciative. And when he agreed to meet with us, we certainly wanted to take advantage of that. And so I'm going to turn things over to Marcus Coleman. And like I said, he's the recent appointee as director of the DHS Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships director. The president has asked him to serve in that role, and he's doing a phenomenal job. I can tell you that. We just interacted at the National VOAD, which was just a few weeks ago. And certainly we've been working with him on those recent events as well. And so at that, I'm going to turn things over. Marcus, can you talk to some of our folk that are on the call? Just to let you know, we've got some of our conference directors from around what we call our North American division, which includes the United States. And so they certainly want to hear from you, Marcus. And so I'm going to shut up and let them hear from you, sir. So please go ahead, Marcus.
Derek Lee, an honor to be with you and an honor to be with Adventist Community Services. I am grateful for the leadership that you all provide before, during, and after disasters of all types. As Derek mentioned, he and I have been in touch on issues related to the unfortunate acts of targeted violence in Uvalde and Buffalo, but also I know ACS continues to be a partner and leader across disasters across the country. Your reputation precedes you here within FEMA and DHS as a trusted and invaluable partner. And I know personally the contributions that you all do through Adventist Adventist Community Services and the largest Day Adventist Church community. As one of your very own, Paul Montero just was appointed, confirmed rather, to serve as the director for Department of Justice Community and Relations Service. And Paul and I will be working together, and we'll continue to work across all faith offices for how you can engage. I guess what I'd love to do, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity for leaders today, I'd love to start kind of with a round robin to just get to know names, affiliations, the jurisdiction that you oversee or the teams that you lead. And then I'll do a quick walkthrough of some of the ways that we can continue our partnership using FEMA Strategic Plan as a guideline, but also want to make sure I'm able to answer your questions. And so, but before we do the full round robin, I'll just say I have a few members of my team online as well that are joining us, and I'll have them give introductions before I give our presentation. But my office sits, as Derek Lee mentioned, so we sit in the office of the FEMA administrator. So I report directly to FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, I have a direct reporting relationship to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And I also have a direct line reporting relationship to the White House via Executive Director Melissa Rogers. And so that's a little bit about me, but would love, as you all are able, to provide an introduction, just name where you're located, the aspect of ACS that you lead out on. That would be super helpful for me.
Right, so I guess we'll go first. My name is Darren Riches, and my partner, Judy Mae Riches, is coordinating the training for next month right now with Adventist Community Services. We're the Adventist Community Services and Adventist Community Services Disaster Response Directors for the Voice of Truth Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is one of our churches in our Allegheny East Conference. We're volunteers. And so we saw the webinar about an hour ago on Facebook, and we just want to join you all to show support and let you know that we're here.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, hello to Derek and Colette and Winnell and Rebby.
Thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate that. Frank Harold, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, please? You're muted, Frank.
Sure won't hear me muted, will you? Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
The name is Frank Harrell. I am the Adventist Community Services leader for the South Atlantic Conference located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Very happy to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you much. Michael, can you introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. My name is Michael Stow. I'm here in Springfield, Ohio, and I'm in the Ohio Conference. And I pastor 3 churches here, and we're working in Springfield of trying to get an ACS center up and running. So just wanted to join today to, of course, start building that knowledge base.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you, Michael. Let's be in conversation. Appreciate that. Delbert.
Sure, we'll do that.
All right. Delbert, go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning or afternoon. My name is Delbert Castillo. I am the Adventist Community Services Director for the Nevada-Utah Conference. Glad to be here.
All right. Thank you, Delbert. Appreciate that. Miss Teresa, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. Go ahead, Teresa, please.
Hi, I'm Teresa.
You're muted.
Hi, I'm Teresa Harrison, and I'm the Administrative Assistant to Elder Frank Harrell in the South Atlantic Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Glad to be here and to receive the information that we can get from you today.
All right.
And may I chime in? She is excellent at what she does.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Teresa. Bianca, go ahead, please, Bianca.
Hello, I wasn't sure if y'all wanted me to go next because I am with DHS.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you may want to wait because I think he wants to have you introduce yourself before you all get started. Thank you. Appreciate. Sorry about that. Ricardo, you're with DHS too, so I'll wait on you. Amindi.
I am with DHS as well.
Okay. I'm running down here. Okay, you know what? You have that in your moniker there. Minnie McNeil, go ahead and identify yourself, Miss Minnie. Oh, is she there? There we go.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. Kind of double tasking here. Great to see Marcus Coleman again. I have heard him on several occasions. I am the former director for Allegheny East, ACS, Person Ministry in Your City, Disaster Response. And I'm taking notes today for our director, Dr. Smith, and I'm a guest of Derek Lee today.
All right. Thank you, Minnie. Always welcome guests. That's for sure. That's for sure. And let me introduce my staff there. I don't think they've had an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm just going to start at the top. Miss Rebby, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Rebby Isaac, and I'm the administrative professional for Adventist Community Services at the North American Division.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miss Rebby. And Miss Winnell, I know you were talking at the beginning, but go ahead, Winnell.
I'm Winnell Stevens, and I'm the Assistant Director for the Adventist Community Services here at the North American Division.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Miss Winnell. And Miss Collette, please. Collette.
Hello, I'm Colette Neward, the Associate Director for Adventist Community Services here at the North American Division. So it's good to see everyone.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Colette. And as I mentioned, I'm here in Indiana with some of our volunteers and workers at our Indiana conference, one of our conference centers here. And so thank you so much, Marcus. I think we'll turn it over to you. I believe that's it. Was anyone left out that wanted to introduce themselves? I think we got everyone. Okay. On you, Marcus.
Okay, so Bianca, we'll go to you first, and Mindy, Ricardo, Miguel, and then I'll go. So Bianca, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bianca Capadia. I work at the DHS Center on resilience, as well as the regions I pertain to are regions 6, 9, and 10. And what that means for non-FEMA folks is Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, New Mexico, and then you kind of go from that region towards the west of the country, and that's what I hit. So like all the way out to California and the state of Washington, etc. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricardo Agudelo Doval. I work also for the DHS Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. I work as a recovery programs liaison. Been with the center for about 3 years. Before that, I joined FEMA in 2018 in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Here to serve and to see how we can collaborate and build partnerships together. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amindi Omana, and I also work with the DHS Center. I have been with FEMA for the last 5 years, and I am also here to build partnerships and support you in whatever capacity you may need. Nice meeting everybody. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Miguel Santiago. I'm doing the summer internship with the DHS Center. So I'm learning and still learning. I'm good to be here to learn more. Thank you.
Excellent. And again, my name is Marcus Coleman, and Miguel is one of the reasons I had Miguel go right before I did, is one of the areas that we would love to continue to partner with Adventist Community Services. Is we do have other internships available. And so throughout the year, we'll be providing plenty of opportunities, and would love to make sure that we're extending internships and career opportunities writ large to all members of Adventist Community Services and the networks that you're connected with. So what I'd like to do now is I will share my screen. And if you all can let me know, do you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to move through the PowerPoint presentation. Let me make sure that I can see people's, they have raised hands. Feel free to raise your hand or drop questions in the chat as you so desire. And then I will try to wrap up, do my presentation in about 20 minutes so we can leave time for Q&A. This is an updated version of what might have been sent around. It provides a bit more in depth, some practical collaboration points, but please know that this is something that we can offer not just here nationally, but as you all are having state convenings or regional efforts, happy to provide this or things more in depth as well. And so just very quickly, I'll cover a bit about our center, how we relate to the other 11 centers, and then priorities and partnership opportunities with FEMA. So our office, as I mentioned in our introduction, is one of 11 centers of the White House Office of Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships. Our center was specifically stood up shortly after Hurricane Katrina. It was by George W. Bush, and has continued in every iteration, every presidential administration since then. The Centers for Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships were also started by George W. Bush originally in 2001. And we have also, there's been different iterations and continued since then. I myself have been involved in a career capacity or in my current capacity for 3 of the last 4 administrations. So for President Barack Obama, President Donald Trump, and now President Joe Biden, I've been in and around efforts to support specifically the mission of the DHS Center for Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships. We have 2 overarching areas of focus. Area 1 is what many of you all do in ACS, all hazards preparedness, disaster response and recovery work. And area focus 2, combating human trafficking. We have done that since 2011 and do that through our subject matter expert, Nicole Wood, and continued partnership with the Center for Countering Human Trafficking and the Senior Policy Operating Group, which is convened by the Department of State. What you see is a photo of FEMA Administrator Criswell, who is our current FEMA Administrator, in one of the local churches in New Orleans, Louisiana, shortly after Hurricane Ida, for a town hall with various faith and community leaders and staff as well. So what we can do for you, I think top takeaways, what our center can offer is we partner across DHS and FEMA to provide virtual and in-person technical assistance and briefings. And so that can range from technical assistance workshops on how to apply for some of the grants that we provide, collaborating with ACS to do virtual or in-person trainings. If there's a particular workshop for people that want to know about cyber hygiene and cybersecurity, that's very much what we are available for year round. We also are a resource to help navigate federal government across the board. And so through our 11 Centers for Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships, we provide multiple doors to get to questions of interest and concern to ACS. And then of course, when disasters happen, want to be a primary source of information, work very closely with Derek in this capacity and some of your other colleagues to ensure that the latest and greatest information is being made available to members of the entire ACS community through both my office and the voluntary agency coordination section. And just for context, we support much more than just places of worship. We talk about faith-based and neighborhood partnerships. Again, I know Seventh-day Adventists broadly may have schools, there may be other community centers, other organizations outside of the disaster relief space that are affiliated with the work. And so just know that we are there as well. I'd say a growth area for us as we think about just engaging around some of these conversations with the increase in severity and complexity of storms is continuing to engage with faith-based insurance agencies as well. And some of the things that are on their mind to make sure that they're being best stewards of the resources that they are afforded to ensure against certain policies. And then our FEMA strategic plan. So FEMA Administrator Criswell had charged the agency to continue to connect and think deeply about where emergency management as a whole needs to go and what role FEMA plays in that. And with that, it led to the development of the strategic plan that you see here. And the plan has 3 goals, and they are fairly ambitious. Goal number 1, instilling equity as a foundation of emergency management. That means looking at equity in everything that we do, from the people that we have, our workforce, and our people are the most important aspect of what we do, to our policies, and also examining some of our processes. And so we'll provide some examples of each one of these in just a moment to give a little bit of flavor of what we're looking at. Goal number 2, leading whole of community and climate resilience. And so when we talk about climate resilience, we do look specifically at some of the impacts that are caused or that are due to climate change, and also recognize and know that when we start talking about conversation about stewardship of the earth, about building nature-based solutions, about doing hazard mitigation, people are coming from different perspectives. And so we look at climate resilience in a holistic way. And that includes making sure that we increase climate literacy, not just among external partners, but among emergency managers as well. And then goal 3, promoting and sustaining a ready FEMA and prepared nation. That means, being able to prepare for what we know to be true, right? We're in the midst of hurricane season, there's wildfire season, it's always earthquake season, but then also thinking about some of the emerging and unique threats that are impacting our communities. For communities of faith and for community spaces, unfortunately, that's included an increase in man-made attacks and acts of targeted violence, but then also cybersecurity. So that's a little bit of our strategic plan as the whole. What I'd like to do is we're going to just do a quick dive through each one of those goals and some resources that are available. When I talk about resources, I'm talking about one of 3 things. It can be resources in terms of educational and informational materials. And so that's everything from guides to workbooks, to trainings, to planning and training information. That could also include financial resources such as grant programs. I talk a lot about the Nonprofit Security Grant Program today. And that can also include just relationships. We know that ACS has a very strong relationship with FEMA, particularly through one of our units that does donations and volunteer management, but recognize that the interests of the communities you serve may be much broader. So we're looking to partner and expand those relationships. But when we talk about partnering to instill equity as a foundation in emergency management, I'd say that one of the recommendations that we do think about is how we continue to expand and refine our programs in a way that makes them more equitable. Some of you may be familiar that after Hurricane Katrina, there were people that were unable to apply for a FEMA grant because they were what the government considered an heir property owner, meaning they might have owned a home or been given a home by a grandmother or grandfather or great uncle, and they did everything but go to the bank. So maybe they didn't have the formal paperwork to prove that they own the home, but they've been in that home for generations. In September of 2021, in an effort to expand equity options for disaster assistance, FEMA Administrator Chris Well had made a policy change that expanded opportunities for people to show and demonstrate that the home belonged to them and their family. And so that was one policy step towards addressing equity. And as you can see here, there's actually a guide that we co-developed with several national organizations to look at other alliances that we can build to drive more equitable resilience. These are not the only things that we're doing. I think it's a snippet of what's to come. But the other part that we know is true is that equity is going to continue to drive and influence everything that happens in emergency management, because every time there is a disaster, it exacerbates the inequities that communities may face. Now, we know that there's a lot of discussion around what the definitions are that we use. And so I just want to clarify here, when we talk about equity, where that definition is rooted in, it's rooted in the president's executive order signed day 1 in January of 2021. And so you see that the full definition here, and also provide some context of a formal term of art in government, underserved communities. That does mean something very specific from a government lens. And so hopefully that's helpful for you all there. And then, as I mentioned, and again, you guys will have access to these slides. These are examples of some tools. We actually have a full FEMA equity webpage that provides all of the curated information and is constantly updated as it relates to FEMA's role and work and program updates around equity. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop because you want to make sure that you're on top of what's happening on equity, that is the page. There's a page for you. We also have information on some of the other available guides. There's a wonderful tool that's developed from our colleagues from GIS that's focused on the National Risk Index. It's a great GIS tool to help look at some of the information from a GIS perspective. And there's a few other tools that we can provide for you as well. So again, you'll have access to all of these in a PowerPoint that'll be sent to everybody, but happy to make sure that you all are able to see that here. And then what I'll drop in the chat for everybody is just an example to the risk index information. When we talk about partnering to lead on climate action, and so as of last Wednesday, we actually just released a Building Alliances for Climate Action, which provides a series of perspectives and tools to help us be a little bit more thoughtful about what it means to take action on climate. It includes some narrative from faith leaders, tribal leaders, a few mayors of towns and municipalities of all sizes, and a few other perspectives. And the resources in there are great for anyone that is just looking to get a better sense of when we're talking about the role that climate continues to play in our work as emergency managers or in emergency management, or if you're a faith leader and you're looking to kind of get a sense of what type of actions or activities may be best suited for you to start with to be involved in, it's one resource that's available for you. And so our focus in goal 2, we are interested in building a climate resilient nation. We actually have a formal network called the Resilient Nation Partnership Network, which is a collection of about 1,500 organizations. ACS, we are happy to have ACS as a member of that. If you all are interested, and it's not a heavy commitment at all, but it's about 1,500 or so organizations that are interested in various aspects of climate resilience. A great way to stay engaged on the climate resilience front and thinking about some of our resilience programmings. And then again, there's a big focus on climate literacy. And so I don't know if there are people here that are responsible for facilities for ACS or for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But what I'll say is when we talk about this leading whole community in climate resilience, we definitely talk about resilience from the social connection and social connectedness point, but we also speak about it practically from the aspect of mitigation of buildings and facilities. And so there are several resources that are available for anyone that's interested in making some specific connections to leading on climate resilience. And we're happy to help facilitate relationships to a few key partners. We'll be having a meeting actually this week with colleagues in FEMA that are responsible for environmental and historic preservation. And knowing that there are probably many Seventh-day Adventist churches across the country that are either historic sites or maybe interested in learning what they can do to preserve certain documents in times of disasters. We have a number of resources through a partnership with Smithsonian available for that as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, as we think about just disasters in general, having mitigation goes a long way. The latest statistics is about $1 invested in mitigation can equal about $6 in savings for communities. And so we're going to continue to encourage faith-based and community groups to consider ways to mitigate. We're actually developing, and I'll preview it here. You guys are the first to hear it. We are working with our colleagues to build a guide specifically on expanding mitigation, looking at the perspective of faith-based and community groups. And so if that is something that you'd be interested in being a part of, I would be glad to have ACS as part of that conversation as well. And then the last goal, when we talk about partnering to promote and sustain a ready nation, there's a few places to partner there. The way that I think about this particular goal is kind of 3 sub-bullets, thinking about people, places, and policy. And we know that when those 3 things come together, communities are better served. What you see is a visual of a church that we were able to visit in Reserve, Louisiana. And that church is Tapatulas Chapel in Reserve, Louisiana. And it's an example of post-disaster. When we work with organizations like Adventist Community Services or work with members like the National Voluntary Organizations Active Disasters, or some of the groups that are involved in climate justice and environmental justice, we typically end up getting connected with local faith leaders that are doing things like providing food drives. And some of the resources that we can provide is that we can bring some personnel on site to help people register for disasters. And so that's a little bit of what you see here that's happened. And so when we talk about goal 3, as I said, we talk about people, places, and policies. And on the people front, as I mentioned, we are always hiring. I would be remiss if I did not make a pitch for, if not the folks on this call, that folks within the ACS community that are looking for a career change, looking for opportunities either full-time or on a reservist basis, to consider a career with FEMA. We are continuing to grow, and the needs and demands of the agency are definitely growing. And so we have career opportunities. And as we mentioned with Miguel's presence, we have internship opportunities and opportunities through a program called FEMA Core. It's an AmeriCorps program, or through a partnership with AmeriCorps. We do a 2-year rotation for people ages 18 to 24, but we have internship opportunities as well for all levels and phases of career. And so I just want to put that out there for people. When we talk about places, unfortunately, one of the emerging threats continues to be cybersecurity. And so we do have a whole host of resources available through our colleagues at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, Shields Up. And so it provides you great resources there. We know many of our congregations are still, if not fully in person, they may be doing hybrid or still having to go to Zoom every now and again. And then there's other just cybersecurity considerations I hadn't even thought about until I met with some of our folks. So you have a whole host of resources, again, for facilities within your jurisdictions to use. I recognize that many faith-based and community organizations have taken keen interest in promoting safety and security for their place of worship, and also making sure that they are fully aware of how to build out a plan to think about, again, mitigating against man-made attacks. There are a few resources that have been developed, one of which you see here is a comprehensive guide. This guide is about 197 pages long. And so it gives a very deep dive on how to take a fully holistic approach, but it's not the only resource we have. And so there are a few one-pagers, videos, fact sheets that complement this guide as well. And for those in the ACS community, we always encourage everybody, regardless of if they're interested from a security standpoint or a safety standpoint, to do a facility assessment. And we have a facility assessment that's been developed with our colleagues from CISA that actually applies to the next program I'm going to talk about, which is the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. So the Nonprofit Security Grant Program has been in the news a lot lately. It is a program that was developed post 9/11 and designed to provide funding to private nonprofits to prevent acts of terrorism. We know, right, as we have increased threats, there's increased interest for resources to do things from installing cameras to bomb-proofing windows to maybe setting up something to prevent arson. And so that's an example of one grant program that we do provide technical assistance on. The grant cycle for that particular program has closed for FY22, but we're not going to wait until FY23 to start promoting it. So as we look to the fall, which is before when the notice of funding opportunity comes out, we want ACS to be on the lookout for workshops to walk through the nonprofit security grant program. I'd say just if I had 3 points of recommendations that members of the ACS community and Seventh-day Adventist community should consider doing over the summer. Completing a facility assessment is really important. As I mentioned, we have an actual template and tool to do that. We can also connect members of the ACS with what we call protective security advisors. And there are a number of other programs that we have available looking at safety and security and preventing targeted acts of targeted violence and domestic violent extremism. So those are some of the resources there. And a completely different switch. But as we think about resources for youth preparedness, we actually have created a hub of information, including programs and people and considerations of different levels of resources that help promote youth preparedness. That is from ages K through teens and folks that are entering into college. So these are some ways to partner there. On the recovery front, we are continuing when we talk about equity, we are continuing to look at and manage the community recovery management toolkit. We know that from areas related to mental health to disaster housing to long-term community work, there's a lot of information that's needed to really help think about some of our long-term recovery efforts. But for now, we have a one-stop shop that provides a number of resources for people that are focused on community recovery. And we're doing our best to not just cut across government, but to cut across sectors to get different perspectives on the recovery. And again, for people that you may know, so maybe it's not you all directly, FEMA does do business with organizations pre and post disasters. And one of the other ways to partner is that if folks are interested in doing business or with DHS or with FEMA, and when we talk about doing business, it could be being contracted to provide medical supplies or water, or maybe you have somebody in your congregation that does construction and wants to do post-disaster construction. We have, again, avenues to make some of those connections as well. And the one of the second to last pieces that I'll share is, as we talk about, again, promoting a ready nation and a ready FEMA, is what we're talking about is kind of citizen preparedness. And so there's a number of trainings. I know ACS does a lot of trainings already. And so some of this you may have already seen, but there's a number of trainings, and we're going to have an increased emphasis and focus on kind of citizen and individual preparedness in community settings. Here, you have an organization, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, who recently completed a community emergency response team training course. And so, but there are a few aspects and resources there for you as well. And know that these are some other resources based on some of the stuff that I mentioned. And then just to flag for folks, we have some specific faith-based and emergency management resources and information for those that I'm sure everybody on the call is very familiar with Emergency Support Function 6, but sharing that annex as well for folks to see where folks plug it in. And that is my presentation. So I know that was a lot, but as I mentioned, we'll be providing to Ms. Stevens this updated PowerPoint, and you all have access to all of those hyperlinks that you can use anytime. But I'd say bottom line, the relationship that we're seeking to make with ACS is to be a partner year round across all areas of interest. So with that, I want to open it up for questions, and we'll take those we'll respond where we can, and we'll continue to work with Derek, Ms. Stevens, and team to do follow-up on other areas of interest throughout the year.
Thank you, Marcus. Very appreciative of your thorough presentation there. And I'm looking to see if there are any questions, but while I'm waiting for that, I have a question for you, Marcus, because many of these individuals are from various areas. As it relates to your office, I know the young lady laid out her geographical area of responsibility. Is that the way your office is broken down? And so if, for instance, I'm in Illinois, would it be proper for me to reach out to one of the individuals in your office who covers that particular geographical area? Or what's the best contact for individuals in the different areas that they are?
Absolutely. So the best contact is partnerships@fema.dhs.gov.
Okay.
That's the email that goes to my entire staff and myself. And yes, each Bianca, Ricardo, and Amindi are part of a national team. And so they each cover different FEMA regions and parts of the country. But if there's a particular request, if there's an inquiry, if a disaster happens, right? So let's put it in disaster, non-disaster context. Derek, in another world, if you wanted me to join you in Indiana, you'd send that note to partnerships@fema.dhs.gov. And then we would have a member of the team reach out, get additional information, and determine if either myself or somebody from FEMA Region 5 would be able to join you for the next preparedness summit that you're doing. If in a disaster context, If there's a particular disaster that's been activated, we use our same regional structure. And again, a lot of the work that we do, and I'll say, Derek, this is for you and for others, in the disaster context, we take extensive efforts to come alongside our FEMA voluntary agency liaisons to ensure that we're coordinated for all of the work that they do in support of communities. But if there's one email to get to all four of us, and we have a few more people on my staff as well, and that's partnerships@fema.dhs.gov.
Beautiful. I think that'll be very helpful, Marcus. Thank you for providing that contact information. I think that will certainly be helpful to some of our conferences that are represented on this call today. One more question I have. You mentioned the mitigation program that you guys have. Your office, because the North American Division, which is the area we represent, works in Micronesia as well. And I know we're trying to work on some mitigation strategies with them. Your office covers that as well, that Micronesia area?
Yeah, on the US side, we do.
Right.
What I can do, Derek, is if you send me a note, we'll connect with Michael Kern, who has moved out to the Hawaii area for the Pacific area office.
Yes.
And find out who we can't get involved from a mitigation standpoint out in that area.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate. Any other questions out there from any of the folk on the line while we've got Marcus for the next couple of minutes here? I'll turn it over to you all. Looking.
Just a quick question, Marcus. If you could unpack a bit more about document preservation.
Sure. So I will start, and then Bianca, if you have some other stuff to chime in, please do. So I know Bianca also did drop some of the resources specifically that's available through the Smithsonian. I think one of the areas of interest that I'm concerned about is that, especially for older documents, that there are things that people can be doing from a steady state environment to start protecting and preserving those important documents now. And I think that's critically important, because when disaster impacts do happen, we know sometimes you may not be able to recover much but those important documents. And so that's one aspect of it, that there's a great cultural rescue initiative that I'll defer the floor to Bianca to continue to cover, that provides some additional context and information for folks that may be interested. Bianca.
Thank you. Yes, hi. So Marcus is right. The best time to start is during steady state to preserve your documents. And that website that I sent has some, under resources and training, has some documents that can help you that can assist you with working on that preservation. During a disaster and after a disaster, we have this specific group that consists of environmental historic preservation officers, and they are generally environmental scientists and archaeologists. And so we do defer to that group to help properly conserve artifacts and documents after a disaster has occurred. And we'd also be happy if y'all are interested in having a presentation set up to work with our colleagues over at HENTEF, the Historic, Environmental, and Natural Present. I am sorry, I don't know what HENTEF Heritage Emergency National Task Force. That is the group within FEMA that partners with Smithsonian. And so if you are interested in having a specific training from them, we would be happy to connect y'all with them, because they are the subject matter experts, being environmental scientists and archaeologists.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All of our churches have amazing history.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's just something that we may not think about initially.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could follow up, you mentioned about the trainings that you all offer. And I know at some point you talked about, Marcus, attacks on houses of worship, that you all deal with that situation. I've had a number of our directors are concerned about that possibility. Is that something that you all do offer trainings on, be it
Yes.
virtual or in person? And how would we take advantage of that? Because like I said, I have had some of our conference directors reach out to me asking about that very thing.
For sure. So I'd say that if you're looking to, so yes, we do provide training on a few topics. So active shooter, bomb prevention. We're able to work with you all to think about trainings on active assailant topics. So there are three things that I'd offer to that degree. If you're looking for an activity to join, so maybe a director or a particular jurisdiction isn't at a place where they want to host something, but they're looking to join something from an active shooter perspective, our colleagues at CISA do active shooter webinars virtually, and they provide a number of resources as well. If there is interest, and maybe it's not just the Adventist community, but maybe a member of ACS through their state VOAD wants to host a convening talking about safety and security broadly. We are happy to come alongside you all for those efforts as well. And then if there are certain organizations, and maybe it could be, again, some of your directors might have some churches that have gone through the process of developing an emergency plan and they want to test it. What I just dropped in the chat is a link to a set of tabletop exercises specifically designed for faith-based organizations to think through a number of scenarios that would test existing plans or help an organization that has no plan identify some gaps. So yes, we do provide those trainings. Yes, we do them in person and virtually. And yes, we can offer where you can join, but then also more than happy to work on building towards doing some things that provide in-person or virtual instruction, either specific to ACS community or for the broader communities you work with in the future.
That's great. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. I see a question here from Delbert. Will we have all these different websites in the email he asked about? Are you able to get that to us in the in an email, Marcus?
Yes. So we'll send the updated PowerPoint deck. As I mentioned, it'll be a PDF. So all the hyperlinks will be accessed there. And then we'll also provide a link to key web sources that were shared today.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Marcus. We appreciate you and your team walking with us as we try to get our areas protected and ready for what could lie ahead. So thank you so much. We're very appreciative for you being with us here. Are there any other questions before we let Marcus and his team go for the day? Don't think so. All right.
I want to, if I can put in one more plug, and,
sure.
And I just want to make sure. So because you all are International VOAD movement as well, one of the areas that we know is going to continue to get a lot of conversation is FEMA public assistance, and specifically as it relates to rebuilding or using some of that funding to rebuild houses of worship. And so Ricardo Agudelo Duval on my team is very focused on working to make sure that we can reduce the complexity of understanding that particular program, because we know in the event that a Seventh-day Adventist church is destroyed as a consequence of a tornado, a flood, a hurricane, and there's a presidential declaration that they want to be able to access their resources to rebuild. And so Derek, maybe if there's an opportunity in the future, maybe one of the follow-on conversations can be what organizations can do ahead of time to get prepared for that process in case that they need it. But I'd be remiss if we didn't explicitly mention that. And then I'll drop a quick video that explains a little bit about the process and what that actually what some groups can do.
No, thank you so much, Marcus, because I know in the past that has been a challenge that we've had when some of our churches have been affected by various events that have taken place around the country. And so thank you for that. Appreciate that resource. Certainly, we may have need of that at some point in the future. So thank you. Appreciate that, Marcus. Well, Marcus, thank you so much. Appreciate your hour that you were able to spend with us and your team. Appreciate what you all are doing down there in Washington, D.C. And a lot of times we don't feel as if Washington is there to help us, but you guys always are. And so certainly we are appreciative of you and your efforts. Thank you so much. And if you need anything from us, you know how to reach out to us and get in touch with us. So thank you so much, Marcus. And I tell you, before you leave, Marcus, we'd like to close you out and send you out with prayer, if that be okay. Colette, would you be kind enough to do that for us, please? Miss Colette Newer.
Sure. Let's bow our heads. Our gracious Lord, you are so good to us, and we want to be with our communities and represent that goodness and share that with them as well, Lord. I thank you for this team from FEMA and with the Department of Homeland Security, Lord. I thank you for Marcus and his team and for the work that they are doing to help prepare and protect people and save lives. So I ask that your hand of blessing go on them. I ask that your hand also be on all of our minds as we assimilate this information and absorb just what it means for how we work and what the possibilities are. You lay them in front of us, show us, open our eyes to what we can do and how we can work together with this team. I thank you for each person on here, and please bless their ministries. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all standing by. Marcus, your team, thank you so much. And we are ever so appreciative of you all joining us today. So we'll see you next time. Winnell, anything we need to leave with the folk on the phone?
No, I think we got it all. Thank you.
All right, good enough.
Thank you. And good to see you.
Thank you, Marcus.
All righty.